May 2015, Nepal. Weeks after the big quake, I was a sergeant out of a small airbase near Kathmandu, running relief runs into a cut-off valley in Dolakha. On paper, it was simple: drop food, grab the injured, get out before the weather turned. But that valley had a name in the local stories that should have made us turn around. We saw things up there no report ever mentioned. Bodies twisted wrong, tracks where no feet should ever be. You want the real version, not the one in the file. Then listen. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel, and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. I do not talk about Nepal much. Too many people turned it into a news clip. A headline. A quick story about landslides and aftershocks. What we saw was more than that. This was May. Weeks after the big quake. The first one had already wrecked half the country. The second one hit near Dolakha and finished the job in that area. We were at a small airbase outside Kathmandu. Not the big commercial side. The dusty corner where they stuck the foreign units in the extra helos. The mornings were clear and cold. Thin air. You could see snow still hanging on the higher slopes. Lower down, the hills were torn up. Fresh scars where the mountain had slid. Loose rock everywhere. I was Sergeant Daniel Cole back then, late 20s. Team leader. Just another line dog who got tagged to help with relief. I already had one bad mission in my pocket from another country, different war. Wrong call, wrong timing, people dead. That kind of thing sits in the back of your head. You hear the rotors, you smell dust, and you remember who you left behind. Our little crew for that run, Corporal Lisa Reyes, medic, tough, sharp, did not go in for ghost stories or any other crap she could not stitch or tape. Private Adam Miller, new kid. First time in a real disaster zone, eyes always too wide. Wanted to prove he was hard, but his hands shook just enough to give him away. Captain Mort from the Nepalese army. Calm, quiet guy. Knew the terrain, knew the local dialects, always polite. Carried himself like someone who trusted mountains more than people. Dorje, our local guide. Middle-aged, strong legs, deep lines on his face. Born in the valley we were heading to. Knew every path and every story, or so he said. And Chief Warrant Officer Clark, our pilot, American. Lived in that helicopter. Talked to it, cursed it, praised it, called it she every time. Light humor, bad coffee breath. The mission on paper was simple. Fly to a cut-off village high in Dolakha district. Deliver food, blankets, medicine. Pick up injured villagers and bring them back to somewhere with real doctors. At the bottom of the order sheet there was one more line. Reports of strange cries at night and missing livestock. Possible wild animal threat. Assess. That was it. No bold letters. No big warning. Just a casual note some staff officer tossed in. We spent the morning loading the bird. Brown boxes, white sacks, water, tarps, med kits. Move, stack, tie down. Standard. The radio in the ops tent kept spitting chatter. Aftershocks. Roads gone, bridges gone. Whole ridge lines slid into rivers. Villages still waiting for help because nobody could get in on wheels. Only rotors. There was talk about another helicopter that had gone missing in the mountains a few days before. Marine bird, Huey. Last heard talking about fuel problems out near Dolakha. Nobody called it spooky. Just a reminder. These hills ate aircraft even before the earthquake. Hell of a place to run out of gas, Clark muttered as he signed for the flight plan. He patted the side of his own helo. You keep drinking clean and we will be fine, girl. Reyes sat on a crate, checking her medical kit for the third time. Counting bandages in low Nepali with a local soldier, just to keep her tongue sharp. Miller hovered near me. Sergeant, you think we are going to see any more big aftershocks? Probably, I said. We keep helmets on, stay away from loose walls. You listen to locals when they say move. They feel the ground before we do. He nodded, trying to look calm. I pulled a message out of my pocket again. Print out from home. My brother's wife had sent a photo of their kid in a soccer jersey. Big grin, grass under his feet. Whole world flat and safe. I folded it and put it back. Did not belong in those mountains. We finished loading. Clark gave us the usual quick once-over. Weight is good, he said. Weather window looks decent. If the winds stay polite, we go in, drop, haul, and we are home for more terrible instant noodles by dark. Best cuisine in theater, Reyes said. Damn right, he laughed. We climbed in. Rotors spun up. The valley dust swirled. Engines roared. The base shrank fast once we lifted. That city of blue tarps and broken houses turned small, then smaller. People on the ground looked like ants picking through rubble. I sat by the open side door, harness clipped, rifle across my chest. Looked out at roads cut in half, hillsides shaved clean, rivers choked with gray water and debris. Clark pointed out landmarks through the intercom. That ridge line to the east, that is towards Sindupalchowk, got hammered. Pema leaned in between us and pointed north. Gorashanka Range out there, high country. Our valley is below those peaks. Dorje squinted ahead, one hand on the frame. The village you go to, he said in English for our sake, is old. Very old. Monastery up on ridge above it. Monks used to come down and bless the fields. He did not say used to in a story way, just fact. We flew deeper into the mountains. Hills folded over each other. Shadows grew sharp. The air looked clean, but everything in my gut told me it was not friendly. Still, at that point, it was all normal. Just another dangerous place on a long list. Mountains, rotors, shaky landing zone, injured civilians. Nothing else. Not yet. The farther we got from Kathmandu, the rougher it felt. Clouds started building out of nowhere. Not big storms, just shredded gray sheets appearing fast, sliding between peaks. The air turned choppy. The bird kicked and swayed. Rotors bit into pockets that were not there a second before. Wind is weird today, Clark said over the intercom. Keeps changing its mind, feels wrong. He did not go into technical talk. Did not have to. I could see the way his shoulders tightened every time the bird lurched. We checked in with a small Nepalese army post on a lower ridge. Little collection of tents and a radio mast clinging to a hill. Pema handled the local net, fast Nepali back and forth. I only caught a word here and there. Then he switched to English for us. Their operator says some of the nearby villagers reported a white shape on the cliffs at night, he said, and animals found torn open far from any path. Snow leopard? Reyes asked. Pema looked at her, then at the floor for a second. They have leopards. They know leopards, he said. They say this is not the same. The radio hissed again. The voice on the other end spoke fast, urgent. Pema's jaw tightened. He cut the call short. What was that? I asked. He shook his head. Old men with old fears, he said. This valley has many stories. They are scared now. They see things. He did not sound convinced by his own words. Dorje sat quiet for a while, staring out. Then he spoke without looking at us. The valley we go to, he said, was always called the Valley of Borrowed Times by my grandfather, long ago. Sounds cheerful, Reyes said. He gave a brief smile that did not reach his eyes. People there say the mountain lends you time, he went on, but you must give it back. Sometimes sooner than you want. Miller swallowed. Great. Dorje shifted his pack. There is an old story of a white walker. Tall, pale thing that comes in heavy winters, steps on the roofs, calls in the voice of someone you know, makes you walk outside, then you vanish. He let that hang for a breath. Then he chuckled, waved a hand. Old story only, children's scare. Earthquake has them remembering stupid things. Nobody laughed with him. We followed the valley up. From above, you could see the damage in long lines, footpaths cut by slides. Terraces collapsed, whole chunks of hillside missing. We passed over a river where a footbridge used to be. Now it was a shredded rope and a couple of broken planks hanging over white, angry water. On one bank, a small group of villagers looked up and waved. At first, it looked like they were calling for help. Then I noticed the way their hands moved. Not a simple wave. Palms turned out, arms pushing away. Looked more like they were telling us not to go. Miller saw it too. Sergeant, he said in my ear, those people did not look happy we were heading up this way. Eyes forward, Miller, I said. But I agreed with him. Something in that wave bothered me. I checked the time on my wrist. Pema checked his right after, then his own again, as if the numbers would change the weather. Sun goes behind those peaks early, he said. Best we land, work, and pull out before that. Reyes leaned toward me. If we have to leave people behind because of light, we will. I did not answer right away. The last time I had pulled out under pressure, people died. We take who we can, I said. We do not crash the bird trying to save everyone in one trip. Crash bird saves nobody. She nodded, but I could see it chewing on her. She hated limits when people were bleeding. The village came into view a few minutes later. It sat on a broken slope, halfway up the side of the valley. Terraced fields torn up, some houses crushed flat. Others stood intact with doors hanging open. Dust lay over everything, dull and gray. From up there, it looked abandoned. LZ is that flat patch near the upper huts, Clark said. Not pretty, but it will do. Do it quick, I told him. I do not trust these clouds. We began to drop into the valley. The walls rose around us. The sky narrowed. The rotors echoed off stone. Everything felt dangerous, but it still felt human. Rock, weather, weak buildings, frail bodies. Things I understood. I thought that was all I had to worry about. I was wrong. The approach looked good for about 10 seconds. Then the wind hit us. 1 second we were sliding toward the flat spot near the upper houses. Next second the bird dropped hard, nose dipping, tail swinging. Hold on, Clark snapped. The helicopter tilted. My stomach went up into my chest. Outside the door, the slope jumped at us. Loose rock, broken walls, flashes of blue tarp. Clark hauled on the controls, fighting invisible hands. The engine screamed. The bird swung back the other way, then settled just enough. We slammed down rough. One landing leg dug into soft, shattered ground and sank a good foot. The whole frame shuddered. Someone cursed behind me, but we stayed upright. No blades hit stone. No rolls. Good landing, Clark said through clenched teeth. Any landing we walk away from. Remind me to hit you later, Reyes muttered. We spilled out fast. My boots sank into powdery dust and loose stones. The air smelled of old smoke and cracked earth. The place felt wrong the second my feet hit the ground. Some houses were piles of stone and timber. Others still stood, doors hanging open, curtains flapping. No kids, no dogs, no goats moving. Just the distant clatter of rocks still settling somewhere higher up and the faint chop of our rotors winding down. "Where is everyone?" Miller said, too loud. "Quiet," I told him. We moved toward the nearest standing house. An old man stepped out of a doorway farther up the path, thin as a stick, dust in his hair. He leaned on a wooden staff and stared at us like we were not real. Behind him came two more villagers. One was a woman with her arm wrapped in a dirty bandage. The other was a younger man limping badly. Dorje hurried to them, talking fast in their language. Their eyes darted to us, to the bird, to the sky. We started unloading boxes, stacking them near a still-standing wall. Reyes moved to the injured woman, hands gentle but firm, asking Pima for translations when she needed. After a few minutes, Dorje walked over to me. "They say many people left after the second shaking," he said. "Aftershock. Some went down valley to stay with family. Some took the old path over the ridge. A few stayed here. The ones who stayed," he hesitated. "What?" I asked. "Some of them disappeared at night," he said. No sound. No sign. Just gone from their beds or from where they keep the animals. "Maybe they fell during aftershocks," Reyes said. "Walked out, ground moved, they went with it." Dorje nodded slowly, not convinced. I went to talk to the old man. He gripped his staff so hard his knuckles looked white through the dust. Through Pema and Dorje, we got the pieces. He talked about footsteps on the roofs at night. Heavy ones. Not someone running. Slow, deliberate steps. He said there was a voice in the snow. Even when there was no snow on the ground. A voice calling. Sometimes it sounded like a neighbor or a dead relative, calling people by name from outside their doors. He said there was a white shape that moved on the cliffs, not on the paths. High up where no man could stand. It moved fast and slow at the same time. His eyes shifted to the ridgeline when he said that. I followed his gaze. Saw only broken rock and dirty patches of old snow. Pima put a hand on the old man's shoulder, spoke gently. Calming words, grief, fear, stress. Earthquake does strange things to the mind. All of that. The old man just shook his head. We started our checks around the village. Needed to see who could walk, who needed to be flown out, what damage was worst. Behind one house, Reyes and Miller found a small animal pen. Sergeant Reyes called, "You better see this." I walked over. Inside the pen, there was a dead goat. Neck broken clean. Ribs split open, not chewed, not eaten the way a dog or cat would. More like something had forced its way in to get at the organs, then stopped halfway through. The ground around it was torn up, dust and stones scuffed and scraped. But there were no clear tracks, no normal paw prints, just a couple of deep scratches in the hard earth. Long grooves, almost vertical, like someone drove in 4 thick fingers and dragged. Could be a big cat, Reyes said. They get weird when they are starving. Her face told a different story. Cat that forgot how feet work, I said. Miller shifted his weight. He kept looking over his shoulder at the valley mouth. I do not like this place, he muttered. Join the club, Reyes said. Clouds thickened above us. Shadows grew longer. Clark came over from the bird. News is not great, he said. Wind is picking up and the light is dropping fast between these walls. We try to lift in another hour, and you are going to be scraping us off that ridge. So we stay, I said. He nodded. Better to camp and go at first light. I'm not auguring this thing in on a charity run. He was right. Bad flying kills just as hard as bullets. We found one of the least damaged houses near the center of the village. Solid enough timber. Cracked walls, but no obvious lean. We moved inside with a few of the villagers, set up a small fire in a safe corner, stacked gear along the walls. Assigned watch. Dorje insisted we did not sleep outside. This valley, he said, you do not lie under open sky on nights after the earth has moved. You stay under beams. You keep fire. You listen. Listen for what? Miller asked. Dorje just stared at the low ceiling. You will know. Night came early once the sun dipped behind the peaks. Cold moved in fast. Firelight flickered on cracked plaster and exposed beams. Voices dropped to whispers, then faded as people dozed. I sat near the door with my rifle. Hoped for nothing more exciting than a stray dog or a late aftershock. Sometime past midnight, when the fire was all coals and most of the villagers were half asleep, I heard it. Weight on the roof. Something heavy. Not stone falling. Not a goat. Slow steps. One, then another. Careful. Deliberate, moving along the ridgeline right above us. Everyone in the room went still all at once. Nobody said a word. The fire cracked. The footsteps kept going across the roof, then stopping right over my head. I stared up at the ceiling and felt the old guilt and the new fear mixed together. Whatever was on that roof knew we were there, and it wanted us to know it knew. We sat there in the dark, counting each slow step. Something above us kicked loose a few small stones. They slid down the outside wall and clattered on the ground. Not random, too spaced out. Then came a low sound. Not a clean animal growl. Not a human moan. Somewhere in between, like a chest full of cold air trying to remember how to push a voice out. Miller started to rise, grabbing his rifle. We should get out there, he whispered. Sit down, I growled. You walk out that door into a quake-shattered village. In the dark, under God knows what. You die fast and stupid. He froze, then sank back to the floor. The sound moved along the roof, over to the far side of the house, then faded. A few more stones slid. Then nothing. Nobody slept much after that. When the light finally seeped through the cracks, we stepped outside. Cold morning, clear sky, thin air biting our lungs. First thing we checked was the goat pen. Empty. The dead goat was gone. The blood on the ground had dried, but the body was not there anymore. We found drag marks heading away from the pen. Long grooves, as if something had hooked into the carcass and pulled. The tracks went across the yard, into a field, then up toward a slope of loose rock and debris above the village. We followed them, moving slow, weapons up. Loose stones rolled under our boots. The march led right to the edge of a small drop. Not huge. Maybe the height of a house. Just enough to break legs if you fell wrong. At the edge, the groove stopped. No blood at the base of the drop. No twisted goat. No more marks on the slope below. It was as if the thing they were dragging had just left the ground and never came down again. This is bull, Reyes muttered. Nothing just vanishes. Miller pointed at the rock wall beside the drop. Sergeant, he said, voice tight, you need to see this. On that near vertical face, there were marks. Not scratches this time. Deep, wide impressions. They were spaced in pairs, one above the other, broad at the bottom, narrowing at the top. Too wide for a human boot. Too clean for random rockfall. They ran up the rock in a staggered line. If you squinted, they looked like footprints. pressed into a place no one could stand. My mouth went dry. Dorje refused to look at them for more than a second. He muttered a short prayer, eyes down, lips tight. We pulled back to the main part of the village. People were starting to move around. A few children peeked out, wide-eyed. Women boiled water over tiny fires. Men picked through rubble. Then the earth moved. It started with a rumble under our boots, deep, distant, like a heavy truck rolling somewhere below us. Aftershock, Pima snapped. Away from walls now. We barely had time to react. Everyone staggered into the open. The ground heaved. Stone rattled underfoot. One of the houses on the edge of the village, already cracked, finally gave up. The whole front wall folded out. Roof beam slid. The whole thing collapsed into a pile. A villager we had just been talking to stood in the wrong spot. 1 second he was there. Next second the wall took him. Dust blasted out into the street. People screamed. The world went gray. We dug as soon as it settled. Too late. His body was under a slab, neck and spine bent at angles that made my stomach twist. No ghosts in that. Just bad luck and bad timing. But it added to the weight on everyone's shoulders. Back in the center of the village, the arguing started. Some of the villagers crowded around us and Dorje. "We go with the soldiers," one man insisted. "We do not stay here. This place is cursed now." Another shook his head. "The paths are broken. Slides everywhere. It is better to stay together and wait for help. The soldiers can call more helicopters." An older woman with a lined face and sharp eyes stared at the broken slope above the village. "The valley is awake now," she said quietly. "It does not want us to go. It will take what it is owed." Miller shifted closer to me. "I do not like the way she said that, Sergeant." "Focus on tasks," I said. "Fear talks loud in places like this." I tried to raise bass on the radio. Got nothing at first. Just static and the familiar whine of the set. Then a faint voice came through, chopped by distance and terrain. I caught parts of my own call sign, some words about weather, another mission. "Say again," I said. "We are in Dolaka Valley, high village, heavy damage, multiple injured, possible predatory animal threat, over." "Copy, Dolaka, situation, repeat, signal, weak," came back in bits. Then the line went dead. Clark tried the radio on the bird. He got a different kind of noise, static with edges. Sometimes, in the hiss, it sounded almost like distant voices, just out of range. He shook his head when he came over. "Comms are garbage," he said. "Mountain is eating everything." Later that day, Pema wanted to check the water source above the village. Some pipe and channel up the slope that fed the main tank. If that went bad, the people left here would be in even worse shape. He took a small group, a few villagers, Miller and me. Reyes stayed below with the injured. We picked our way up a narrow path along a broken terrace. On one side, open drop. On the other, rock and dirt from old slides. Halfway up, we hit a fresh landslide, just a small one covering the path. Loose stones and dust over old snow. "We cross one at a time," Pema said. Slow. He went first. Light on his feet despite the uniform and gear. Made it across. One of the younger local helpers went next. Halfway over, a crust of dirty snow under the slide gave way. He dropped out of sight with a yell. Stone went with him. We scrambled along the edge, sliding down a safer line to reach where he had fallen. He lay twisted on a ledge below, neck at a wrong angle. One arm bent behind him in a way joints do not go, but that was not the part that stopped me. There was a smear of blood on the rock wall just above him. It did not run down with gravity. It ran up, thin line, from the ledge toward a dark crack higher on the wall. Miller stared at it, lips moving. No words came out. "Rock may be shifted," Pima said weakly. He did not sound like he believed it. We carried the body back down wrapped in a torn blanket. Another dead villager on the list. Another reason for the others to panic. Back in the center, we gathered with Pima and Dorje. "Options," I said. "We cannot sit here forever. Comms are trash. Aftershocks keep coming. Something big is stalking this place." "There is the old monastery on the ridge above," Pima said. "Strong stone walls, higher ground for the radio, better sight lines." Dorje nodded slowly. "The monastery is old, but its main hall stands. It is safer than these broken houses." "Or we stay," Reyes said. "Shelter is here. If another bird makes it in, This is the obvious landing spot. I looked at the cracked walls around us, thought about the footsteps on the roof, the goat, the marks on the rock, the body twisted below the slide. "We move," I said finally. "At first light. Whoever can walk, walks. Whoever cannot, we carry." We go up to the monastery and try to raise base from there. Nobody liked it, but nobody had a better idea. As we packed what we could that evening, Miller froze suddenly, staring up at the ridge above the village. "Sergeant," he whispered, "do you see that?" I followed his gaze. For a second, I saw something on the skyline. Tall, too tall for a normal man at that distance, pale against the dark rock, standing still watching. Then a gust of cloud swept over the ridge and it was gone. "Probably just a rock," Reyes said. Her voice was flat. No rock had eyes that you could feel from that far. We went to sleep early that night. Nobody really slept. Morning would be worse. We left the village just after dawn. Cold air bit our faces. The sky was clear again, a hard blue framed by dark peaks. We tied some of the weaker villagers together with rope, carried the worst injured on makeshift stretchers built from broken doors and bamboo. The path to the monastery wound up the side of the valley. Narrow ledges, steep switchbacks, sections where the trail had broken away, and we had to pick our way across loose stones. Each step sent pebbles clattering down. Some vanished into the drop without ever hitting anything we could hear. The air thinned as we climbed. Every few minutes we had to stop, let the older villagers catch their breath. Pema tried to keep a steady pace despite the bruising on his leg from grabbing that panicked man the day before. Miller carried one end of a stretcher, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the boots in front of him. Halfway up, we came to a narrow ledge section. On one side, solid rock. On the other, nothing. Just open space and the valley floor far below. We went single file, hands on the wall. Move one foot, then the other. Rock came out of nowhere. A fist-sized chunk smashed into the path right behind Reyes and Miller. Stones sprayed off the edge. Everyone froze, clinging to the wall. I looked up. On the rock above us, maybe 40 feet, there was a shape. Tall, pale, shoulders hunched. Its arms were too long. Hands resting on the stone in front of it, fingers spread wide. It watched us. Eyes dark, deep-set, catching the light. Not glowing, not special, just focused. It did not pant, did not sway. It was steady in a place no human could hold. Then it moved. It climbed higher with short, strong motions. Hands and feet finding holds that were not there, hauling that bulky frame upward. No sound of loose rock, no grunt. 1 second it was there. Next second it was gone over the lip. "Move," I snapped. "Now, get off this ledge." A villager near the back panicked. He tried to rush past the person in front of him. His foot slipped on gravel. He swung out over the drop, arms pinwheeling. Pema grabbed his sleeve, slammed him back against the wall. The motion dragged Pema sideways too. His leg smacked hard into the rock. He grunted in pain. By the time we got them both steady, his face was gray. "Leg is not good," Reyes said when we reached a wider patch and checked him. "We wrap it. He can still walk, but not fast. Swelling is going to get ugly." Pema just nodded, teeth clenched. "I go," he said. "I must." We kept climbing. The monastery finally came into view above us. It sat on a shelf of rock near the top of the ridge. Old stone walls, some cracked and leaning. A main hall that still held its roof. Several smaller buildings half collapsed. Prayer flags torn and tangled in the rubble. As we approached, a cold wind slid down from the peaks, carrying the faint smell of incense and old dust. Inside the main hall it was dim and cold. Shafts of light came through cracks in the roof. Dust motes floated in the beams. Faded paintings covered the walls. Not just the usual gods and demons. On one wall, tall white shapes stood over kneeling people. Human faces but stretched, eyes hollow, arms long, nearly reaching the ground. The paint was old, flaking, but the shapes were clear enough. Miller stared at it and swallowed hard. "Tell me this is not the same thing," he whispered. Dorje did not look at the painting. "Monks painted many things," he said. "Stories, warnings, prayers." A line of bells hung near the entrance. Old bronze, worn smooth at the edges by weather and time. Even when the wind outside dropped, a few of them still moved. Just a slight tremble. A tiny, constant ring. The monks left this place many years ago, Dorje said quietly. They say one winter was very heavy. The snow came down the mountain in the night and took a whole group of monks while they slept. After that, the rest would not stay. We set the villagers up in the main hall, near the inner walls. Less chance of anything falling on them in another quake. Then I took the radio up to the highest terrace. From there you could see the whole valley. The ruined village below. The far ridge where our bird sat, a tiny speck now. The peaks beyond that, sharp and white. I keyed the radio, gave our call sign, our rough grid, our situation. For once, someone answered clearly. Copy, Cole, a voice said. We have your last known from your departure, but terrain has your exact blocked. Say again your description of the valley. I opened my mouth to repeat. A sharp metallic howl ripped through the headset. Not feedback, not normal interference. It started high, then dropped low, like metal tearing and someone screaming at the same time. The sound knifed straight into my skull. I tore the headset off on reflex. The radio went dead. Below, some of the villagers flinched and covered their ears, even without headsets. Pima looked up at me with a grim face. He had heard something through the thin air. We tried to raise base again. Nothing, just flat static. So we dug in. We barred the big wooden door of the main hall. Stacked broken benches against the weaker shutters. Posted watches at the few narrow windows. Night at that altitude felt sharper. The dark came quick, pressing against the stone. We set a rotation, Miller and a couple of villagers for the first watch. Then me and Reyes. Then whoever could still keep their eyes open without shaking apart. While we sat around the small central fire, Dorje and Pema shared more of the valley stories. They talked about people who heard a familiar voice outside in heavy snow. Stepped out to answer. Left only prints leading away from the house. No prints coming back. They said the white ones were here before the villages, before the roads, before even the temples. Old as the rock, patient. Reyes poked the fire, jaw tight. Stories are not going to help anyone sleep, she said. Maybe no one should sleep, Dorje answered. Around midnight, the first hit came. It started as a deep thump against the outer wall. Stone shivered. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. Another impact. Harder. A crack appeared in one of the outer stones near the door. From just outside, we heard scraping. Nails, claws, something heavy dragging against rock. Then breathing. Slow, deep, drawn through something big and cold. Right on the other side of the wood. The door bent inward an inch under a sudden shove. Wood creaked. The bar jumped, but held. People started wailing quietly in the back. Hold that door, I barked. Miller and I shoved a bench harder against it. Pema leaned his shoulder in despite his leg. The pressure stayed for a long few seconds, then slowly eased. Footsteps moved along the wall outside. Hand or claw slid across the stone. Then silence. Everyone looked at me. I did not have anything smart to say. Later in the night, during Miller's watch, he called me over in a hoarse whisper. He pointed at a thin crack between two planks in the main door. I leaned close. An eye filled the gap. Huge. Dark. No visible white. Just a wet black surface that caught the firelight in a dull shine. It did not dart or twitch. It just stared in. Slow blink. I could see frost forming around the crack. Each breath from outside left a faint crust on the wood. Then the eye slid away. Something heavy moved off into the night. I did not sleep again until the sky started to lighten. Morning showed us what the dark had been hiding. Outside the monastery walls, the ground was pitted with deep holes. Not random, not just quake damage. Each hole was spaced from the next, the way footsteps would be spaced if the person was very tall and very heavy. On the outer walls, higher than any of us could reach, there were hand-shaped marks. Fingers long and spread, pressed into dirt and lichen on the stone. One of the bells near the entrance hung twisted. The metal loop that held it had been bent like soft wire. Not a snow leopard, Reyes said softly. Food was low. What we had brought in was meant as a drop, not a long stay. The villagers had lost most of their stores when the houses collapsed. We did the math. We had enough to keep everyone from starving for a few days. Not enough for comfort. Pema's leg was worse. The swelling had spread past the knee. Reyes worried about his blood flow. Infection. Things she could only hold back so long with what she had. I caught my hands shaking when I tried to tie a knot on one of the tarps. I stopped and stared at them until they were still again. The villagers started whispering. Some of them watched us with tight faces. They say the soldiers brought bad luck with the flying machine, Dorte told me quietly. Before you came, there were stories only. Now people are dead, and the white ones walk again. I looked at him. Do you think that? He shrugged one shoulder. I think the mountain does what it wants, he said. But people need someone to blame when it hurts them. Later, near the fire, one man spoke up louder than the rest. If we give the mountain something, he said, staring at the floor, maybe it lets the rest of us go. Shut that down, I snapped. He glanced up, eyes hard. You tell us to walk on broken ice and rock, he said. Your friend here cannot even walk fast. Maybe the mountain wants. I moved in on him before he finished that sentence. Do not say it, I hissed. Nobody here gets handed to anything. He fell quiet, but the idea stayed. I could see it in some of their faces. Later that morning, we needed water. The small spring below the monastery was still running, but you had to walk a narrow cut between two boulders to get to it. We sent a small group. 2 villagers with jerry cans, Miller, and another soldier. They were gone, maybe 20 minutes. Then we heard shouts. We ran down the path, boots slipping on frost. The narrow cut opened into a short drop to a frozen stream. Snow lay in uneven piles around the rocks, some a bit dirty from slides. One of the jerry cans lay on its side, water spilling. A set of tracks led from the path to the edge of a steeper drop. Boots. Then a mess of scuffs and deep gouges in the snow. No tracks came back. One of the villagers pointed upward, face white. He went up, he gasped. It took him up. I looked. Above the drop, the rock wall climbed straight for several meters. On that wall, in fresh snow stuck to the stone, there were long, deep marks. Hand and foot. The same strange, too wide impressions we had seen before. Higher up, a smear of dark red. There were no bits of body below, no broken limbs. Nothing. Just empty air, a hard floor of ice, and those marks leading out of reach. We pulled back to the monastery. Some of the villagers were done. Fear had burned through them until there was nothing rational left. We cannot stay, one said. We cannot. The white ones will pick us one by one. Another shook his head. Down the valley is worse. Slides, broken paths. We stay in the walls. Soldiers will call more helicopters. A third pointed at Pima's leg and the older injured. We cannot move fast with them. We will all die to save a few who cannot walk. Is that wise? Rhea stood up so fast her stool tipped. You start talking about leaving people, I am going to break your nose, she said. He backed off, but again, the seed was there. Pema and I stepped aside to talk. Staying here, we are targets, I said. Last night it tested the walls. Today it tested the water run. It is patient. It will keep cutting at the weak points until we break. Pima rubbed his face. He looked 10 years older than when I first met him. The glacier, he said. There is a narrow one that feeds this valley. It runs down to a wider basin. A helicopter could get in there if the weather is good. It is dangerous in the best season. After the earthquake, he trailed off. Dorje, I called. He came over slowly. The glacier route, I asked. Can we take people down that way? His eyes went distant. Since the shaking, it is unstable, he said. Crevasses open where there were none. Ice can fall, but it is a way out. Down valley, paths are broken. Many slides. The glacier may be the only line left. We go at first light, I said. We rope up. We make noise. Fire, flares, whatever we have left. Try to make ourselves look big and loud to whatever is hunting us. We move fast as we can to that basin and hope a bird can reach us. Reyes frowned. You trust the glacier more than the monastery walls. I do not trust anything here, I said, but staying means we wait for it to peel us apart one by one. Moving gives us at least a chance. That night, I could not sleep. I lay against the cold stone, rifle within reach, listening. Sometimes I thought I heard it outside the walls, not touching this time, just pacing, breath in the air, waiting. It felt like it knew exactly what we were planning, and it had its own plan. We moved out before sunrise. The air was brutal, cold enough that each breath stabbed. The sky was a flat gray, no color yet. We tied everyone together in groups with rope, strongest up front and back for each line, injured in the middle. The glacier started just beyond the ridge the monastery sat on. The first steps down onto it felt wrong. Ice under a thin dusting of snow, hard and slick. Each boot strike echoed with a dull crunch. Cracks ran under the surface in faint, wandering lines, some wide, some hair-thin. Each one was a question with no good answer. We moved in single file along a faint path Dorje trusted. He walked near the front of the first rope, tapping the ice ahead with a pole he had taken from the monastery. Every few minutes, we stopped and listened. At first, there was nothing, just the creak of rope, the quiet panting of cold lungs, the occasional sob from a tired villager. Then Rhea spotted movement behind us. "Back there," she said, voice clipped. Up on the dark rocks above the glacier, a pale form moved, not running, just pacing along the slope, keeping parallel with us. Every time it vanished behind an outcrop, it appeared again a little closer. "Keep moving," I said. Reyes fired a few rounds into the air. The cracks echoed between the cliffs. Chunks of ice flaked from walls in the distance. The white shape paused, as if watching the impacts, then continued. It stayed just far enough that we could not put rounds on it with any confidence. I realized then that it knew our range. The glacier narrowed ahead of us. The walls of the valley pinched in, forming a deep gorge of ice and dark stone. Dorje stopped at the mouth of it. "There is no other way," he said. "This is the only path down." Inside the gorge, the light was weaker. The walls rose high on both sides. Little bits of ice fell from above, clicking when they hit the floor. The air felt heavy on my chest. We went in. Ropes tight, steps careful. Halfway through, the gorge bent. We could not see the exit yet. Only a pale glow from the sky far ahead. Then the sound came. A rasping slide above us. A dislodged rock. Before I could call a halt, something dropped into the path ahead. It landed on its feet with a heavy thud that shook the ice. It stood there, blocking the way. We saw it clear. No more glimpses. No more guesses. Tall. Taller than any of us by a head and a half at least. Its body was covered in pale fur matted with ice and old dried blood near the hands and mouth. The fur was patchy in some places, showing gray, tough skin underneath. The arms were long, hanging almost to its knees. Hands huge. Fingers thick and tipped with broken, dirty nails. Its head was heavy. Face mostly flat and pale except for deep eyes and a dark, wide mouth. No expression. No snarl. Just a steady stare. Its chest rose and fell slow. It was used to this air, this altitude, this place. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then someone behind me screamed and fired. The gorge exploded with sound. Muzzle flashes bounced off the ice. Shots struck the walls, throwing up chips. A few rounds hit the thing. I saw small bursts of dark on its fur. It jerked, but did not fall. Instead, it opened its mouth and let out a roar. The sound was thick. It bounced back and forth between the walls, turning into a rolling, ugly thunder. The glacier floor under our feet trembled. Cracks spidered out from some of our boot prints. Snow and ice slid from high ledges above us. Little falls at first, then bigger ones. "Cease fire," I yelled. "You are waking the whole damn mountain." Most of the shooting stopped. One villager kept squeezing his trigger until his old rifle clicked empty. Above the creature, chunks of ice started to give way. A dusting of snow became a stream. I looked up at the walls. We were in the worst place to be if the mountain decided to shrug. The creature took a step forward. Slow, confident. Pima stumbled up beside me, leaning on Dorje. His leg barely held. "We cannot stay here," Reyes shouted over the noise. "Cole, what do we do?" In my chest, old guilt and new fear thrummed in the same rhythm. Another bad call here, and they all died. We had one explosive left. A small grenade, enough to make a mess of a room. Not enough to guarantee this thing stayed down if I tried to put it right in its face. I looked at the wall above it instead. Cracks ran through the ice in a jagged pattern. The blast had already loosened half of it. If that whole side went, it would fall right on the creature, and everything near it. I saw one narrow chance. "Reyes," I yelled. "You take the ropes and lead everyone back the way we came. Now, do not argue. She stared at me. What about you? I'm going to buy you space, I said. Pima straightened. I stay, he said. This is my valley. Dorje nodded once. And mine. No, I started. They both gave me the same look. There was no time to fight them. Fine, I snapped. You stay low behind that hump. I pointed at a slightly raised chunk of ice off to one side. When it goes, you move with whoever is left. You keep them moving until you see open sky. They nodded. Reyes grabbed Miller and the nearest villagers. Move, she shouted. Back, now. The ropes started to shuffle and turn. People tripped, hauled each other up. The gorge floor shook again as more snow slid from higher ledges. The creature watched them for a second, then focused back on me. It took another step. I pulled the grenade, thumbed the pin. Come on, I muttered. Come a little closer. It did. I lobbed the grenade not at its chest, but at the crack in the ice wall above and slightly behind it. The grenade clipped a jut of ice and dropped right into a small pocket in the wall. There was a short delay that felt too long, then a sharp bang. The crack jumped across the wall in a jagged line. The whole side of the gorge above the creature tore loose. Snow, ice, and rock dropped in a solid wave. The creature looked up. That was the last clear sight I had of its face. The avalanche hit it full on. Everything went white. The shock wave slammed into me, knocking me backwards. I felt the air punched out of my lungs. Cold, heavy weight crashed down. I heard someone yell my name. Maybe Reyes. Maybe Miller. It cut off in the roar. For a few seconds, there was only noise and snow and stone. Then nothing. I do not remember being dug out. I do not remember being pulled into the light or loaded into the bird. Because it did not happen. Not for me. That part of the story belongs to Reyes and Miller, and the few villagers who reached the lower basin. They told me later when they visited me in a place with clean white walls and too much quiet. Hours after the avalanche, they said, the survivors sat at the mouth of the valley, near where the glacier widened. Exhausted, frostbitten, hungry. No idea if any of us behind them were alive. Then they heard a distant, familiar thump. Rotors. A rescue team from base had picked up a faint burst from our earlier call before it died. They had also seen smoke from one of our signal fires the day before, trapped in a side valley. It had taken time, but they finally followed the hints. The helicopter came in low over the broken ice, took one look at the damage and circled, looking for a place to land without dying. Reyes waved a strip of bright cloth until her arms shook. They popped smoke. The bird slid in as close as it dared and set down hard in a patch of flattened snow. They loaded who they could. There were not many left in good shape. Some had to be pushed bodily into the cabin. Others just sat and stared until someone dragged them. Back at the base near Kathmandu, they became numbers in a system. Survivors wrapped in blankets, medics checking pulse, blood pressure, pupils, needles, warm drinks, soft voices in English and Nepali. Miller sat on a folding chair outside the medical tent, staring at the far mountains. His hands would not stop shaking when he tried to light a cigarette. Pima lay on a cot, leg wrapped in clean bandages. He held Dorje's old prayer beads in his hand, thumb running over them again and again. They reported what had happened. They talked about landslides, aftershocks, people lost in falls, the avalanche in the gorge that took me. They mentioned a large animal attacking them on the glacier and near the monastery. That was the cleanest way they could say it without lying outright. Later, a senior officer called them into a small briefing room. No windows. Cheap table. He set a thin folder down. The final report list causes a seismic activity, weather, and probable wild animal incidents, he said. Snow leopard, maybe a bear. Hard to be sure. The important thing is the mission details. Casualties, evacuations, damage. The rest will only distract people. What about what we actually saw? Reyes asked. The officer tapped the folder. There is a line about local legends, he said. And stress. Altitude. You were under heavy strain. The human brain does strange things under those conditions. He did not say the words tall white creature. Those had already been cut out. Just another sad disaster report. Another valley hurt by a shifting fault line and bad luck. Later that night, in a quiet room behind the medical tent, Reyes and Miller sat together. She had a mug of something hot between her hands. He still could not sit still. You saw it too, he said, in the gorge. at the monastery door, on the ridge. Yes, she said. No hesitation. So it was not just me losing it, he said. No, she said. She stared into her drink. I am a medic, she went on. I believe in things I can touch. Bones, blood, infection. I know what shock does to the brain. But I also know what I saw and what I heard. Whatever that was, it was not just some simple animal. They sat in silence for a while, then Miller reached into his pocket. I kept this, he said. He put a small tuft of pale hair on the table. He said he had pulled it from a crack in the monastery wall near the front door after that long night. There had been a few strands stuck in the stone where something big had rubbed against it. Under the bare light, the hair looked wrong, not fur from a goat or dog. Each strand was pale, almost clear, harder than normal hair when he bent it between his fingers. It caught the light in a dull, strange way. I tried to give it to the guys doing the investigation, he said. They were not interested, wrote it off as fiber from a blanket or something, told me to stop chasing ghosts. Reyes picked it up, rolled it between her thumb and forefinger. It is not a ghost, she said quietly. Ghosts do not leave this behind. Ghosts do not twist bodies and bend bells and drag people up walls. She set it back down. Whatever it is still up there, Miller said. She did not argue. I was gone by then, buried under ice and stone in a gorge on a nameless glacier in Dolaka. That is the part everyone agrees on. The rest is just what people think about when they look at those mountains on clear days. Sometimes when I close my eyes now, I see it from a distance I never had in life. I picture the broken field of ice where the avalanche stopped, snow softening the sharp edges little by little, covering the places where blood melted in and froze again. High above, on a narrow ridge, a tall pale shape moves along the skyline. It does not hurry, it does not stumble, it just walks. Every now and then it stops, turns its head, listening, maybe to the wind, maybe to the mountain, maybe to the sound of rotors far away. Then it moves on. The Valley of Borrowed Time keeps what it is owed. The rest of us just tell stories about it when the fire is low and the night is quiet and hope the mountain is not listening. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.